And we're back. It is indeed the morning show. Monday morning, the 10th of August. I'm Marcia Maycomber. We have our next guest with us. And I want to welcome to the show Alex Abuyuan. Alex grew up in Fremont. He's not in Fremont anymore, but done a lot of interesting things throughout his career. And he now runs up Abuyuan Financial Group in Dayton, Ohio. But we're not going to talk strictly numbers here. There is one number in particular that he's very fond of. It's 4, specifically 4%. And I happened to hear quite a lot about this earlier this year. And I was really fascinated by it because Alex is a big fan of creating the 4% life. In fact, he's got a book coming out about it, The 4% Life. So if you have ever wondered why some people seem to accomplish so much and other people stay stuck, they don't get out there, this is where Alex can really help. He says the answer isn't really intelligence, it's not your luck, it's not how hard you work, but it's the 4% in your life. And I think that's the place to let you take it from there, Alex, and explain about the 4% life.
That's great. Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate you having me on your show. I'm excited because all my cousins and family are in the Bay Area. In fact, I
That's
was just
right.
out there in Sassine with my parents last week. So, in fact, I'm going to be out there next week. So, I'm very connected to the Bay Area. So,
That's
4%,
right.
4% life. Here's what I've learned in my insurance business, and it was that the Pareto principle is 20% produce 80% of production. Everyone knows that Pareto principle, but as I was looking at the numbers and drilled it down, there's actually another 20%. The second iteration of the 20% of the 20% is 4%. And it's like, what are these agents? And they account to about 67% of the production. So even a smaller percentage has a larger ratio of impact. And it wasn't so much a numbers game thing that I was looking at, other than what are these people doing at the 4%, these 4%ers. And as I interviewed them, just got to know them in my group, right? Got to know them. They really focused on the things that made the most impact in their production. They focused on how many dollars they need to make, how many presentations, the whole sales thing, but they're really focused on that number. But here's the other thing they were focused on. They weren't focused on what failure meant. Like the same agent, like two agents would have the same numbers, but one agent would attach a different meaning to than the other agent. So the agent who gets 10 no's, they attach the meaning that I'm a failure. I shouldn't do this. This is not my thing, right? But then the other agent says, man, I'm 10 no's closer to getting someone who needs my help, right? And so it really becomes more of an idea of the meaning. It's not a numbers game, it's a meaning game. What people attach to failures and struggles and fears. And so I started looking around me, and there are people around us that seem to have very productive and successful lives. And what are they doing? And after talking to them and my mentor, Andy Albright, here's what I found out is they focus on the things, the few things that would make the biggest impact in their lives, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whether it's their spiritual life. It really comes down to the few things that have the most impact. And when I figured that out, it was like, wow, this is pretty incredible discovery as it relates to everyone's life, right? The numbers might be the same, but the meaning that we give the numbers is what changes our behavior, how we look at it. So I really compiled this book. Like everyone says, there's a good book inside you somewhere. And so I have hundreds of videos on YouTube because I really believe in sharing all the good stuff that I've learned in the insurance business with other people out there free of charge. It's like, man, I want to give this out to the world so maybe someone could achieve better success. And so an agent asked me, hey, I need this particular video on time management. I go, I did something like that maybe 3-4 years ago. Let me look. And so I was searching through my YouTubes. I started running into all these different things I was teaching. And so what I did was I found 15, 20 of the most important ones, I think, and that I had them transcribed. It's like, there's a book here. And as I strung it together, this is where the 4% life came from. And it's something I'm passionate about. People say, where'd you find the time to do it? It's like, baby, I've been doing the last 26 years. I've been writing this book, right? So anyway,
It's all been coming together.
that's right.
Yes,
That's right.
absolutely. So I'm curious. So you pulled this all together to put into your book, and I'm curious a little bit about what you found. Is it you're talking about the perspective of how somebody looks at, I'm 10 people closer. I'm 10 no's closer to a yes. And the other person's looking at, I am 10 no's deeper, saying that this is the wrong direction for me to go. What were you able to discern about the 4% people who do so well and have this? Is it that the other people just have so much fear? What are the blocks?
That's a great question. So here's what I found, and I know for myself because I've experienced it, right? I live this, so I know. You ever get the feeling of that frustration, like there's more to life than this, or I was meant for more, or gosh, I'm so frustrated, but I don't know why I'm so frustrated. And I went through that
Right.
whole thing, and what I discovered and what I discovered other people in that 4% life is they were using a different scoreboard. They were measuring their life against other people's scoreboard, not their own. And when they figured out, you know what, I want to live my life to what my scoreboard is and what makes me productive and fulfilled. I don't like to use happiness because I think happiness is a byproduct of being fulfilled. That they have figured out their identity. And I've got this chapter in my book that is go to the next level. So everyone's trying to change their life by the actions they're doing, but they don't know what's driving the actions. So what are my values that drive the actions? What is my purpose in this life that drive me? What are my values? And so my book steps people through this structured way of figuring out, who am I really? What do I want to accomplish in my life? What am I doing that is not productive towards making me and my identity fulfill my purpose? And what I find when those things are aligned, all the frustrations go away. Like the major frustration that drives people to do unproductive things and negative things, they start becoming more fulfilled. And now every labor is a labor of love towards who they are and what their identity is. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that holds people back is not knowing what that is and measuring themselves against other people's scoreboard.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And which brings me to somebody listening might be going, yeah, but Alex doesn't know this thing that happened to me. But you tell your own story of losing a job just before Christmas, right before your first child was born. And so looking back at this seemingly very painful memory of all these obstacles now in front of you, was there a moment there, a single decision after that layoff that kind of changed everything for you? Or was it a series of little things afterwards that helped you start having a whole different perspective on everything?
Okay, so taking myself back there, it was probably one of the most important decisions I ever made because it really got me to think about who am I really and why am I doing this? And so I get laid off. I was working for a defense contractor at the time, and we lost the defense contract, and I was one of the senior guys on the project. Of course, my labor rate was really high. And so there were no other project that wanted to take me on. So I was the odd man out. It's like musical chairs, no room for me. And it was the, the 20th of December, 1999, the day before we're going to induce the birth of our first child, Zoe, and it was 5 days before Christmas. I go in the office, I'm all fired up, passing out candy bars. Hey man, I'm going to be having a baby. I'm all excited. And then my boss waves me in and says, hey, we lost the contract. There's no other project that wants to take you on. Looks like you're not going to have a job after Christmas. And I sat there and I wanted to jump across the desk and stick my hands around his 17-inch neck and squeeze it to 15 inches. But then I realized in that same instant that the person I should be upset was me, because I put myself in that chair. I gave them my resume. I sold myself to the highest bidder, and it was me. And so I decided, you know what? I take responsibility for this. Now what I'm going to tell my wife. I told her, honey, we've cut a lot of time. The Family Leave Act, I'm going to be with you through the birth of this child. But it was that moment that I said, you know what? I'm never going to put myself in a position where my security is based on someone called a boss. And that's when I said, you know what? I got to figure out how to be independent, where I can make the money I want to make on my own terms, run my own schedule the way I want to make it. I wasn't going to live like that anymore. And that was the decision that got me into becoming an independent insurance agent, an entrepreneur, and really take the bull by the horns and be the master of my own destiny.
Big change. Big change. So if somebody's listening today and they are feeling really stuck, regardless of what career they're in, maybe it's their finances that are throwing them off. Maybe it's a series of personal life events that has just left them feeling stuck. What would you advise as the one thing that they could do this week to help them start moving towards their 4% life?
Probably the biggest thing that I would suggest to someone is really step back and figure out what is driving you to not do the thing you know you need to do to move forward. Everyone has that big hairy monster that they think in their heads that they know that if they conquer that, they can move forward. It's like identifying your biggest fear. The question is, what if that fear was removed? What would you do different in your life to move forward if you no longer had that fear? Everyone has that. And it takes self-reflection to figure out what that is. Once you decide, this is what I'm going to do if I didn't have that fear, my question is, why not do it? Why not do it as if that fear didn't exist? Because fear is a thing, but it doesn't have to be a thing if you act anyway. We all have it. We feel it. That can you move forward past that feeling, because it's a feeling, and go towards the thing that you know you need to do. It could be going to that course that you know that would fulfill you and get you to the next level, or attending that seminar, or going ahead and applying for that next position, even though you don't think you're qualified, you might get rejected. It's like, baby, who cares? When you think about your life, are you going to let other people determine where you want to end up? It's like, what would you 10 years from now tell you today? And when you think about that you 10 years from now, you think about that person who's successful, that's doing what exactly they want to do, that fulfills exactly who they are. What would that person tell you right now? That's the permission that you need from that person, not anyone else, not your family, not your friends, not the counsel of they that you seek approval from. It's the person 10 years from now. That's the permission you need. Ask that person, what do I need to do next? And I think you will make the right decision towards that 4% life.
Got advice. You talk about scheduling courage. It's a great phrase, scheduling courage. What does that look like in everyday life to you? Scheduling courage.
That's great. It's probably one of the biggest parts of my book is people have a business schedule, right? They schedule their work. They don't schedule their life. If you think all you are is work, then all you're going to focus on is work, and then everything else takes the second place and third place and fourth place in your life. I've always believed that if it's worth your life, then it's worth scheduling it in your life. And is your priority really work? If that's your priority, then God bless you. But I think there are other priorities that people have. So why don't you look at the priorities in your life and put those in your schedule first. Then I think your life will fill out the way it's supposed to fill according to what you want to do. If working out's important, put that in your calendar. If spending time with your kids at dinner time is important, put that in your calendar. If your worship life is important, then put that worship time in your calendar. Because if a life's worth living, a life is worth scheduling the important things that mean the most to you so that you live your life on a daily basis with purpose and intent. And what's amazing, Marcia, is that when you schedule the things that are important to you, it's amazing how much time you have for everything. And you don't feel guilty. Family, you don't feel guilty about work because you already have your work schedule in there. When you're at work, you don't feel guilty about being with your family because you already have your family time scheduled out. So it's having a holistic life in a positive way that you do that every day, every week, every month, every year. You're going to go by with such a productive life that the 4% life is doable because you scheduled it.
There you go, everybody. Alex Abuyuan here to talk about the 4% life, not the 1% life, the 4%. You get a whole bunch more. The 4% life. And do you know when the book is coming out yet? Do you have a release date?
Yeah, I'm waiting for a forward from a very important person. I've got some endorsements coming in, probably within a couple months.
Okay.
You can go to
All
my
right.
website, the4percentlife.com, and the 4 is the number 4, and you can be updated on when it'll actually be published.
Published and released. That sounds absolutely perfect. And of course, you can connect with Alex as well. LinkedIn is another place to find him. You can also look for ABN Financial Group if you want to do that. Alex, thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you, Marcia.
Really appreciate it and learning about the 4% life.
Awesome. I appreciate
All right.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. All
Take
right.
care. God
Bye-bye.
bless.
Have a great week.
You too.